Hi, welcome to another episode of our podcast, Cool Guys Watching Cool Movies. So today we're going to be reviewing the movie All Quiet on the Western Front, a German-produced movie on Netflix. Now, this film has been highly praised by almost all historians who have seen it for its realism and consideration of true historical events. Almost all the events that occur in the movie are true and accurate to the real events of World War I, with the exception of Paul Baumer himself. The first aspect of the First World War nailed by the director and producers was the environmental depictions of the Western Front, from the weather to the design and operation of the trenches. The mud, smoke, and massively inclement weather was all very well represented in the movie, and was also true to what occurred on the real Western Front throughout the war. Also very well done in the movie was the signing of the armistice. Matthias Erksberger, played in the movie by Daniel Bruhl, was a real German politician who was sent to negotiate the armistice with the French, exactly as depicted in the movie, making yet another aspect of the movie true to the historical timeline. One of the most devastating moments in the movie were the hundreds of deaths that came just minutes before the armistice was to take effect. While that may have just been a dramatic choice for the sake of the movie's ending, the heartbreaking and completely unnecessary deaths really did occur. German generals made what is now a massively shunned decision to send troops after the trenches when the fate of the war was already decided, and there was nothing to be gained in the attacks, just additionally lost lives.
Hello, as we continue to dive deeper into the All Quiet on the Western Front movie, we must discuss the themes that are present in the movie. This begs the question of what the themes are. The two main themes are politics and power, as well as innovation of technology. The first main theme seen throughout the movie is politics and power. Specifically, throughout the movie, there are cutscenes of administrators and politicians on a train, and as they discuss the background of the war, why all these soldiers are being sent where they are, as well as the reasoning behind the war. So that's where we get to see the reason for our main character Paul getting sent to all these places and all this. And from his perspective, we just get to see the pure, just terrible mutiny of war, how terrible it is, and the drastic effect it has on his mental as well as his physical health. Another specific example of this theme of politics and power is when the soldiers, the war is over, the soldiers report back to base camp, and the general sends them right back into war with about 30 minutes of war being active, because the armistice won't be in effect till 11 o'clock. Essentially, this general was blood hungry. He just wants some sort of victory before the war is over. Some people refute, but our main character Paul is just so shell-shocked. He's lost everything, lost all his friends. He's just stone-faced and goes right back into war. And they fight for a little bit. They kind of sneak up on some French soldiers who think the war is over. However, our main character Paul dies with around 30 seconds until the armistice is in effect, and he lives to see just the beginning of the end of the war as he passes away. And this brings us to our second theme, which is innovation of technology. Specifically, in one scene of the movie, there is tank scene, and throughout past warfare, through the history of humanity and mankind, there has never been such technology such as a tank. The last major war before this was probably the Civil War fought in America, and they fought with rifles where you stand in a line and just everybody takes one shot. Now the innovation has brought them to having full tanks where multiple people can hide inside and shoot, and this really shows the advancement of human technology throughout this time period. Thank you, and here we go with the next one.
During our film, All Quiet on the Western Front, we were introduced to two specific details referring pre-existing colonial America. The first example at hand refers to the beginning of the movie. Our protagonist, Paul Baumer, is seen on the front lines full of excitement for the first time, as he makes the statement, "Look at this, shooting our first Frenchman." But by the end of the movie, he's exhausted by fear, and he just wants to go home. We see him walking in the snowy forest with his friend, Kat, talking about the future of Christmas, incorporating the idea of economy wearing upon the lives of many after thousands were forced into war, many not returning home. leaving families fatherless and broken. During a calm point in the movie, we see Cat receives a letter from his wife at home, but is forced to have our protagonist, Paul Ballmer, read it to him, symbolizing an economic state where men were forced in the front lines without education, abbreviating a depressing and poor state in an economy full of fear. Thank you.
As you guys always know, here on Cool Guys Reviewing Cool Movies, we always have to talk about the space aspect of these films. And if we go and get into the space of this one, the speaker slash the main character of this story would be Paul Ballmer. He's a German soldier for the Central Powers during World War I. He is a teenager, and he enlists with all his friends with the hope of, yay, we're going to war, we're doing this cool thing, we're finally being a man. Kind of just jumping into it, not really knowing what he's getting himself into, as well as friends. Purpose. The purpose of this movie is it's supposed to be a tragic tale of the struggles that soldiers face at war. The director made this movie with the intent to entertain the viewer with a story that they can relate to, being part of history and informative of the adversities that soldiers faced during World War I. So excuse me. So while the filmmaker made this trying to relate to, as in the teenage aspect, the filmmaker also wanted to make it kind of so it would put into perspective for teenagers of today's world how really good we have it. The filmmakers did an amazing job with this throughout the film. Next, the audience, the intended audience of this movie would be really anybody who wants to learn about World War I, or anybody who just has some sort of interest in history. This movie would be great for them, and honestly anybody who just wants to see an amazing masterclass of a film. This would be an awesome movie to sit on the couch with family and watch, as long as there's no youngins around. Honestly, the audience is very wide. Very widespread audience. Sorry. Excuse me. This movie takes place during World War I, which was the bloodiest war at the time. The story is told through the point of view of a German soldier, who they were a member of the Central Powers, or the bad guys. The movie takes place to the end of the war and goes to the deliberation of the Germans to sign the armistice, as well as the struggles that the Germans faced on the front lines. And the event that sparked this movie to take place was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. The rising tensions in Europe at this point in time, with rising militarism, nationalism, and newfound alliances, caused the assassination of Franz Ferdinand to send many European countries to war, including Germany. And well, that wasn't the event that sparked the movie to take place. That was the event that sparked the war to take place. And honestly, the thing that sparked the movie to take place was probably the filmmaker just loved war and wanted to tell more people about and the experiences that these teenagers really went through.
One of the aspects of this film I'm actually most excited to talk about is the main argument of the film. This film is almost unlike almost any other war film, as the argument is not plain and simple as they are in most movies of the same genre. There's no set in stone good guy or bad guy, or even the argument that this war should have never happened. This film takes a step back from the politics and decision-making positions of the war and focuses plainly on the life as a soldier in World War I. This makes the argument very simple, all while harder to spot. The main argument of the film is that war is miserable, cruel, and unfair. The fact is shown through the entirety of the 2+ hour runtime that Paul Ballmer faces the elements, the death of all his friends, hunger, harsh decisions by those and harsh decisions by those in charge. The argument is very valid, as it doesn't show itself or claim one side or the other. It is simply evident to the watcher through the course of the movie, as you can't help but grimace at the screen, as Paul is shown no remorse by the universe, as one hardship after another befalls him, and his life folds in front of him. Even as the movie approaches its end, in an unlikely turn of events, Paul's last remaining friend is killed by a non-war related conflict, which is such a cruel and unfair way to go, as the watcher feels attached to these characters and sympathizes with all they have been through, just to see them killed in a needless way.
And to end it off here on Cool Guys Reviewing Cool Movies, we always like to just kind of dive in a little bit deeper and find some rhetorical strategies that the author slash filmmaker, sorry, not author, really like to implement in their approach to this film. So the first one we have is it's a quotation. It reads, "Your deeds will be the water nourishing the growth of a strong and noble route." This is quoted about 10 minutes into the movie. The general uses this metaphor to convince the influx of troops to be fully committed to their cause, fighting off the French on the Western Front. The metaphor used by the general ultimately attempts to connect the audience with the incoming soldiers to forge a sense of sympathy within the audience and show them how soldiers could go to war and die for their country through the means of propaganda. Great, that very, very good quote. The second rhetorical strategy that the filmmaker used was, the quote reads, "I was too late in being born, Brixdorf. It's been 50 years of no war. What is a soldier without war?" This was quoted about an hour and 31 minutes into the film, and the reason for this is the German administrators use this rhetorical question to provoke not only the other Germans but the audience as well to think about what the purpose of a soldier is if there's no war. He uses this as an attempt to save the lives of current German foot soldiers who are on the front lines battling for their lives. The rhetorical question used by the administrator ultimately tries to evoke sympathy from the audience to get them to think about the consequences of war. Not only are the soldiers, but also the citizens. And we always like to tie something in about pathos, ethos, and logos here on the channel. So the director uses pathos from about 30 minutes into the film to produce a sense of sympathy for the character and the struggles during battle. This is in the form of the death of one of his childhood friends. And this kind of sort of changes his mindset as for the main character in the event that sparked the heartlessness nature of the main character for the remainder of the film. This contributes to his development as a whole, and the appeal is meant to evoke sympathy for the main character and get the audience to relate to the main character on a deeper level. By showing the loss that the main character experiences, the director intends to get the audience to root for the main character throughout his future struggles at war. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this review of All Quiet on the Western Front, and please come back to our channel. We'd love to have you back. Thank you very much.